Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'm Jeanette Mejias, and I'm the co-project director at the New Jersey Family Engagement Hub. We're excited and we're grateful to welcome you to webinar. This is designed especially for families of children we have children in middle and high school students. We know that math can sometimes feel intimidating, but in today's session, it's all about shifting that mindset. Excited to bring this content to you today. You don't need to be a math whiz to make it meaningful impact, but what you do need and what you already have is a heart, presence, and commitment to support your child's learning journey. So this webinar is going to offer you some practical strategies to build confidence, foster that understanding, and create a positive math environment at home. Whether your child is solving equations or simply learning to believe in their own abilities, your role is extremely powerful. So thank you for showing up today. We're really excited again to have you. Your presence here today speaks volumes. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague and partner, Dr. Lanisha Mako Ridley, who's going to walk you through some introductions into our work, and then we can get started. Once again, thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the New Jersey Family Engagement Hub. The Hub, also known as the Statewide Family Engagement Center, is a project that is funded from the U.S. Department of Education. We actually received a 5-year grant from the U.S. Department of Education to work on enhancing family engagement in the state of New Jersey. We work with select districts throughout the state to provide information, tools, strategies to enhance the family engagement that they're already doing in their districts. We're a centralized information hub, and we're here for educators, families, and our community partners. We want to work with everyone because everyone plays a role in enhancing family engagement and therefore promoting student success. We create building bridges, collaborations. We have in-person workshops, online webinar series, as today's webinar series is one of those examples. And most of all, we are trying to empower our youth. It is important to hear what our youth need in order for them to be successful. So today's webinar is one of those things that we want you as parents, as educators, as community partners to work together to build these bridges so that our children do better in math. The hub is also a part of SPAN Parent Advocacy Network. SPAN is an organization that was founded over 35 years ago at a kitchen table, and it's an organization that works to empower families as advocates and partners to improve education, health and mental health, and human service outcomes for youth, toddlers specifically, children, youth, and young adults. We are committed to helping children and families who have the greatest need due to a disability, a special mental health or health need, poverty, discrimination based on race, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, language, immigrant or homeless status. We are here for those who have the greatest need. And we do this by having workshops, promoting resources, and we have programs in all of the areas that you see here on the screen. So to learn more about SPAN, please go to our website, spanadvocacy.org. You can also follow us on all of our social media platforms. And with that being said, I am going to turn it over to our friends at the NAFSky Center for Family Math. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lanisha, and thank you so much, Jeanette. I'm Maggie Casp, and I am so excited to be here today to present on middle school and high school family math. I am here today with Shakia Bland from Just Equations. Shakia, do you want to say hello?
Definitely. Hello, good afternoon. I bring you greetings from Maryland, so I'm close to in proximity to you all. I'm excited to join you in this conversation. My current role, I'm with Just Equations as the Director of Educational Partnerships. And just a quick note about Just Equations, we're a policy institute where we focus on the role of math education in the broader context of equity. And so at Just Equations, we're working across educational segments, such as with partners, Center for Family Math, higher ed institutions, K-12, state level leadership, and so many more partners to advance evidence-based strategies on that pathway transition from high school to college. And I'll tell you more about it throughout our conversation. I'll put a link into the chat to our website. Thanks, Maggie.
Oh, that's awesome. And just to give you a sense of who I am a senior research consultant at the National Association for Family, School, and Community Engagement, where we are also the home of the Center for Family Math. In terms of NAFSCE, we are a nonprofit national membership organization really dedicated to advancing high impact policies and practices for family, school, and community engagement to promote child development and improve student achievement. And for our Center for Family Math, we're really striving to promote research, policies, practices, and partnerships and systems that inspire, harness, and amplify the power and love of math through family and community engagement. So when Shakia and I were planning for today's webinar, we thought it might be fun for us to start with a little word cloud. So to start us off today, we thought we would ask you what words come to mind when you think of high school math. So you can participate in our word cloud in a variety of ways. You can take a picture of the QR code on the screen. You can use the link in the chat box, or you can go to menti.com and use code 49155407. But we really want to hear from you. When you think about high school math, what do you think about? Again, you can use the QR code, or you can use the link in the chat box. And I'm going to go ahead and I am going to skip over to sharing that actual QR code. I'm going to go ahead and see what is coming up on our cloud. Oh, it looks good. Lots of words coming in. Oh boy. Here we go. So some words that are coming in for us. Shakia, feel free to like voice over with me, but it looks like algebra is at the heart.
I saw fun in there, Maggie. I saw fun.
You saw fun. Okay. We were
Yes.
afraid these were going to be like scary, like difficulty, 4 years, boring. Missing prior knowledge. That's an interesting one. Geometry, difficult and algebra are sort of neck and neck.
Relevant is in there.
I love it. Yeah.
Challenging but needed. Okay.
Yeah. And modern. I love this. So these are great. We'll be sure to share these out maybe at the end. I'll try to put those into our presentation so we can have those for us. But I think I'm going to go back and I am going to make sure that I can share my screen again here. But I think what we were really trying to, evoke with some of these words is that high school math can really bring up a lot of strong feelings, sometimes excitement, sometimes challenge. And that's exactly why families matter so much in this journey. When math feels tough, families can be the encouragement, the cheerleaders, and the partners who really help students push through. And when math is inspiring, families are really the ones who get to celebrate those light bulb moments and those successes. So whether the words we see are about struggle or success, they can really remind us that family support is a powerful factor in shaping how youth really experience high school math. So at today's session, we are going to be talking a lot about family math in high school. And one of the things that we hear a lot when it comes to high school math is that parents sometimes just don't know where to start. We might have our own memories of math, and maybe that it's actually harder to help with some of the more advanced topics. But what we really hope you come away with is this idea that there's a lot as parents we can do. So I thought I'd start with an example from my own life. I live here in New Jersey, where teens get their driver's licenses at 17. And my daughter just got hers last month. So in the process of teaching her to drive, we learned that driving actually requires a ton of math. We actually spent a lot of time digging deeper in some really complex notions, whether it's like our rate of speed, calculating how much gas you have left and whether you can make a trip, what it means maybe to have an electric vehicle over a gas vehicle, and even in terms of measurement, as you can see on the screen. My daughter had a really difficult time learning to parallel park, so we ended up having to draw with chalk on the street a protractor to help her know what angle to come in at. So I share all of this because there's lots of ways that family math is present in the lives of teens and families. So I'm going to start and sort of set the stage for Shakia to dig into some of her research around family engagement in adolescence and mathematics, and really give a little bit of the foregrounding of what we know about family math more generally. And the first thing that I think is important for us to know is that family math is about shared relationships among families, schools, and communities to support and promote mathematical learning. So on one hand, for families, it's about engaging in math talk and activities. It's maintaining high expectations. It's advocating for and connecting to math experiences in the community. And for practitioners, on the other hand, it's about opening those doors to families to ensure access to resources and ideas. It's about elevating and expanding the math that families do and building relationships around math in the community. And then the second thing that I think is important to know about family math is really that it takes place everywhere all the time. And this is a statistic that I love and I talk about all the time. But of the 6,000 hours of awake time that teens have available to them each year, only 1,000 of those hours are really spent in school, making really 5,000 hours available to them to explore mathematics outside of school. And what we really know is that people who are successful and positive about math study it all the time, not just in school, but in a variety of different spaces, including after-school programs, parks, early childhood programs, museums, libraries, all of those things. So it's really up to all of us to create almost charging stations so we can create spaces so that teens have places to really charge their math curiosities. The third thing that I think is important for us to know about family math is that family math is cultural. There tends to be this misconception that mathematics is simply abstract facts and ideas that exist in a vacuum. But in actuality, math is very contextual and community-based. And that's why families are so important. So for example, the fact that we use miles instead of kilometers in the US isn't because one is more mathematical than the other. It's simply a cultural choice and a decision rooted in history and context. Or I was joking with a friend the other day whose son took his temperature when he wasn't feeling well and came to her very upset and concerned that his temperature was 37 degrees. And, she chuckled because you see the problem here. The thermometer had shifted from Fahrenheit to Celsius, and it was a whole conversation. And, here's another quick example. If you were born in the US, you likely completed long division using the algorithm you see on the left. However, you went to school in another country, you might have been taught in a different way. But the point is that because math is cultural, families are really the heart of how it's learned and how it's understood. And families can really carry and pass on traditions, routines, and language and perspectives that shape how our youth are going to make sense of numbers and patterns and problem solving. And then the fourth idea that I want to share before I hand it over to Shakia, and probably most relevant to our discussion today, is that it's important to recognize that family math takes place across time. And although it might look different at different points in time, it's still going to remain important across the developmental trajectory. So for example, when kids are little, family math might look like counting socks when doing laundry, or rolling dice in a board game, or measuring flour for cookies. And as kids grow, the math might get more abstract. But families are going to keep it grounded, figuring out, helping children maybe think about the best deal at the grocery store, or timing how long a road trip might take, or making sense of a science homework assignment. But by high school, math really stretches, as many of you noted in the word cloud, into algebra and geometry. But there's lots of ways for families to still stay right there. Talking about angles with chalk, maybe to help a teenager park a car, or comparing basketball stats, or really crunching numbers on college costs. And what I want to share is a great new resource that we put together in partnership with the New Jersey Statewide Family Engagement Center. That's a series of briefs of what families can do all the way from early childhood through elementary school and into adolescence, really falling into these three categories of holding high expectations for math learning, supporting math learning at home and in the community, and connecting with teachers and other community educators around children's academic progress. But what I really want to emphasize is that across all these years, family math is still going to be at the heart of children's math learning. So what I want to share a little bit here is, as we zoom into adolescence, it's an important time to really think about family math, because this is where the stakes change, and the opportunities change and shift too. And some research that was done by the Math Narrative Project, which was, and Lanisha, I loved how you talked about really elevating youth voice, because the Math Narrative Project is really looking at the voices of teens, grade 6 through grade 12, and their parents, and trying to really understand how teens and parents feel about learning math, and also about how teens really feel that parents can support them, especially at a time when mathematics is becoming more complex and it is becoming a little bit more high stakes at times. So to make this more concrete, there are three things that really emerge from the Math Narrative Project as incredibly important for parents to think about. And the first is to believe in your teen's math potential, and to really see mistakes not as failures, but learning opportunities, and to respond to, mistakes in positive ways. So showing confidence, staying calm, modeling curiosity, and sending the message that, we've got this, let's figure it out together. I think the second thing that we've learned from the Math Narrative Project is that, keep talking about math in everyday life. One parent from the project shared this really great quote that I love when talking about ways that this parent talks about math with their teen. And they said, I might say something like, in the future, you might need to take out a loan to get what you want. This might be to pay for college or to buy a car or a house. And in algebra, what you're learning to do is how compound interest might work. And you're going to need that to understand how much to borrow and how much interest different banks might charge. So math, and what we really heard from parents and teens from the Math Narrative Project is that by connecting math to real life, teens are really able to see the choices ahead of them. And then finally, and I think this is such an important point, parents need to remind their teens that it's okay to ask for help and that with the right support, they can figure it out. And it might not be that parents are the ones who can actually provide that support, but encouraging teens to use all resources available, whether it's extra help from their teacher, in-school tutoring programs, online how-to videos on YouTube, or free sites like Khan Academy. It's really knowing where and how to get help that's really part of building confidence and persistence. So with that, I'm going to pass the baton over to Shakia and hear from her about a lot of the research that she's conducted and some of the great takeaways that she's going to share.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Maggie. Well, we can go on to the next slide, and just the slide prior to that has my email address on there, but we'll follow up, I'm sure, at the closing to share information, contact information. On the next slide, I wanted to start off our conversation with a way to engage. So I put a little prompt in the chat that's connected to this quote. Mathematics reveals the power dynamics of our relationships. So our relationships as people, with politics, with policy and practices. And so I know this as a young learner, as a student, as an educator, and working in policy and having to communicate, what does equity in mathematics education mean? What does access and opportunity mean for our students, for our communities? So I invite you all to engage with this quote and the prompt. I put in the chat, think about a relationship in your life and how do you see the power dynamics reflected or revealed through numbers, through patterns, or structures. So as you're thinking about that, please share one word or a short phrase in the chat to just express and also to let us know like you're actively engaged in our conversation, that check in about power dynamics and how it's revealed through numbers, patterns, or structures. Thank you. I'm starting to see some responses come in. Sports, counting votes for elected offices, definitely. Thinking about who has access to information related to data. I see someone posted data reviews. Finance, being able, and I'm studying this as a personal note, I'm studying the stock market and how to invest. So who has access to those resources? Who can break down that information so that it's plain and more accessible? Someone putting grocery shopping or shopping in general, college, music. Yes, thinking outside the box. Thank you so much. So just keep those responses coming in as we talk about power dynamics within this context of math education and high school, and how can we all play a role in maintaining this idea of agency so that we don't feel that we're overpowered by systems, but we can work within our systems to provide more opportunity, access, and engagement, and authentic partnerships between education systems and families. So thank you for that. Maggie, will you please transition us to the next slide? Math that meets the moment. This is one of our newest policy advocacy documents. And so I invite you all to just take a screenshot of that QR code so that you can engage with the resource. But it is a way to outline our policy agenda with just equations as we work to re-envision the role of math in ensuring educational equity. So in this document, we will outline high school math redesigns. And when we use the word modernize, what do we mean? We outline the definition of modernizing, meaning to make sure that it's relevant for students in their present and also future aspirations. So we talk about what does it look like in policy and practice when we offer this reimagining of math course pathways and course options. We also talk about post-secondary access and admissions. We want every student, regardless of their aspirations, when they graduate high school, we want them to be college ready. So if they decide to pursue military and then go back into college, they'll have math credits that will support that transfer. We also want to make sure that students have access to pursue STEM, social sciences, abundance of career opportunities. Also in this document, we talk about cross-system alignment. Again, partnerships and alignment with networks is so important. And the other word that comes to mind when we talk about high school math pathways and that transition to college is transparency and information. So we work to increase that transparency about math policies to ensure that every student who desires to pursue a career in STEM has access to those STEM paths, especially for our students that have been historically marginalized. And then we also work to align math policies across systems. So meaning, again, we work middle school, high school, and college. On the next slide, thank you. This image is a visual description of just the challenges and barriers in our current system of math education. And so I've shared this in other presentations, and I'll just go ahead and describe it a little bit more for people to support the visual dynamic. So on the left side, we have a group of different shaded circles, and the shades just represent diversity. It could be racial, gender, socioeconomic, what have you. So it's a different, diverse group of students that are entering the system of college, or I'm sorry, high school and education opportunities. They encounter in this funnel misconceptions about math ability, and it may be internalized due to being a part of a system, or maybe they've received messages from home, but they're misconceptions about their own math ability. And then you have outside misconceptions about students' math ability. So again, that funnel begins to close as we enter into educational inequities. Some of those inequities I mentioned were around policies and access to advanced math courses, or if your state doesn't offer an automatic enrollment for eighth graders to pursue Algebra 1 based upon test scores, if it's only based on teacher recommendation, is that a barrier for educational equity? And then the funnel begins to narrow even more as we look at math as pedigree. So I opened up our conversation around the power dynamics of mathematics. And I love mathematics and I love education. And there's so much math that's beyond our education system. And sometimes within our education system, it can create this hierarchical situation where math is elevated and seen as something for the very elite or the intelligent. And so it produces this negative culture. And so this idea, if you have that bias, then you tend to look and sift out different students and sort them and say that they're not capable. So at Just Equations, we work to disrupt those biases in our policies and our structures and our practices so that more students have more opportunities to pursue the educational aspirations and career goals that they have. I'm going to pause there and then go to the next one. Yes, thank you. So we had a recent report where we highlighted the gate, the maze, and the pace. And so this theme connects to this topic here, as I talked about this funnel system of our education, what it is and what we can transform it. So collectively on this call, I'm hopeful that we're all advocates to make sure that we have more opportunity for every learner to achieve and have access. I posted this question on here. In what ways can schools and families collaborate so that we can turn traditional barriers in math into points of access and empowerment? So that on the left side, that image of a gate that may be seen as a barrier can be transformed into a threshold or a doorway so that more students have access. So think about that question. And I'm not asking you to respond in the chat, but I'm really asking you to reflect. So as part of your home practice, in what ways can schools and families collaborate so that we can turn these traditional barriers in math into points of access? Thank you, Maggie. On our next slide, the maze. So yes, high school math pathways can afford multiple opportunities and course options. And sometimes this process can be perceived or actually feel like a student is in a maze, trying to go through a single rigid pathway structure. And that is so far from ideal. So I asked the question, how are schools effectively communicating information about secondary math pathways so that every student, every family is equipped with the information so that they can make the best choices in terms of course options that are relevant to students' career and college goals, as well as show them the pathways and structures that are flexible so that if a student decides that they don't want to pursue STEM, but then changes their mind, that they still have an opportunity to get closer to their goal. So just thinking about how sometimes it can be confusing and what can we do within school structures and community support systems to help clear up some of that and disrupt this idea of a maze. On our next slide, I will put, let's see, I'm going to drop a link in the chat so that more people will have access to this image. On this slide, it is our design principles, and it's showing a roadmap, if you will. So it's a play on this term, the PACE, the progress and advocacy. And so when we're designing for equity, we're thinking about what is the process or procedure that students are navigating and families through math education. And how can we as math educators, as staff, better collaborate with our caregivers and students so that we ensure that every transitional moment between academic levels, transitions from 5th to 6th grade, from 8th to 9th grade, and also from 12th grade to post-secondary, that every level they are supported and have access to information to provide opportunity. So not just mathematical skills, but also thinking about mental health. And as I say that, I'm reflecting on the word cloud that Maggie introduced us all to. And some of those words that were shared really were reflective of social emotions that occur within math spaces or spaces where we're doing math. And I strongly believe and feel and recognize that every space has mathematics. And so we can always engage in it. It's just identifying the beauty and the joy of mathematics and communicating that to our families and our students. But what specific strategies or tools could we implement to facilitate these conversations? So as we engage with the image that's displayed on the right side, we talk about a foundational math. So when we talk about modernizing mathematics, we may have all students start with an integrated or modernized version of an algebra course. But then do they have to go straight through this process of geometry and algebra 2? Is there a rush? When do they start? There's so many different questions about math pathways, and it's important for families to be able to have questions that they can pose to their school staff members and their child's teacher to help them navigate that journey, because it will look differently across states. And I wanted to pause here because I wanted to mention that we did write a report that was published in 2024. And I'm dropping the link in the chat now. And it's our Beyond Algebra report. And in this report, we looked at states like Oregon, Washington, Ohio, and Georgia, who are pioneering innovative approaches to ensure that all students have genuine opportunities to succeed in mathematics. And the beauty of this exploration is that states are being more relevant and responsive to the needs of their community, and also engaging in conversations from K-12 to higher ed institutions, so that whatever changes are made at high school, that it also acts as a benefit and a catalyst for students to pursue a dual credit enrollment course opportunity at a small or zero cost. So that's another opportunity to explore in this context of high school math pathways. In this report, we also talk about relevance to college and careers, and how sometimes this misalignment, or most students will not use advanced math like calculus in their careers, yet high school math is often structured with calculus as the pinnacle. And sometimes this misalignment, many students are required to learn math that they may never use. So while potentially missing more relevant content such as statistics and data science or quantitative reasoning, these are very important skills, and we want to make sure that every student has access to these resources and course options. All right, we can go to the next slide. And this is my jam here. We can talk about practical ways that families can support modern mathematics learning. So what can we do? And I think about my own nieces and cousins as they're navigating the start of a school year. Start conversations. Have an open dialogue with your teen about their math experience. What are they feeling? Many of you shared emotions. Many of you tapped into your own personal experiences. Maybe you recalled sitting in that math classroom. Maybe you can picture, were you in desk and rows, or were you at collaborative spaces? But ask your teen, what sparks their interest? How does math connect to their future goals? Think about ways that you can partner with teachers and counselors. The school counselors are so pivotal in offering support in identifying which courses are available, which courses are relevant, and lead to and align with students' aspirations. Secondly, you can connect math to context. And Maggie mentioned this at the opening of her presentation as well. I cannot imagine math out of context. It's just a bunch of numbers. And so even as I study spreadsheets, I'm always thinking in the back of my mind, what do these numbers represent in context? Is it data about humans, about animals, about plant life, weather patterns, whatever it may be? The context adds so much richness to what you're studying. One of the resources that I recently located or found was the Georgia Department of Education. They offer examples of how families can participate in demonstrating standards for mathematical practice. And if you don't know what the standards of mathematical practice are, I'm going to invite someone to drop a link into the chat to share those resources because it's displayed in abundant ways. But I so love the standards of mathematical practice because I really think about broadly how I'm using mathematics, how I'm engaging in productive discourse, how I'm using attending to precision or persevering through challenges. Another practical way that families can support modern mathematics learning is to be a champion. And Holly knows something about this. But stay informed about how your school's policies and prerequisites and placement decisions, how all of that may impact students' ability. You don't need to know calculus or have a deep understanding of data science to do these things, but advocate for access to ensure that all students have the opportunity to reach their full potential in mathematics. Then we can go to the next slide. And strategies for educators. How can we nurture caregiver engagement in modern mathematics education? Well, we can work to be a bridge in that understanding of math approaches. We can work to explain benefits of student-centered learning so that we're exploring that creativity and reasoning in mathematics, that persistence. We can share easy real life examples that families can try at home, as well as encourage caregivers to ask open ended questions. Um, Questions such as, like, how did you solve that? You don't have to have this deep understanding of mathematical concepts in order to have these conversations. And I do have more examples that are specific for educators and for families. It's coming out in a book that I'm co-authored with Dr. Jalitha Riles, and our book is Building Family School Partnerships in Secondary Math, and that is with Corwin Press. It's coming out in March. So I'll provide more information later. But as educators, we can ensure equitable access for families. And how can we do that? Use community spaces. I just think about some of the workshops that Dr. Riles and I have participated and facilitated. We've hosted events at a Juneteenth event. We had a space for STEM education. We've hosted events at libraries, meeting spaces. Um, just thinking outside of the classroom to engage and work with families in the community, removing those barriers and adapting to family needs. And then also build partnerships. One thing I love about this work with Center for Family Math is that partnerships. They emphasize genuine partnerships, not just including families in a conversation, but what does it mean to partner, to highlight families' culture and everyday math knowledge, to invite caregivers to share their experience. Just thinking about so many classroom experiences I've had where I invited parents to come in and talk about how they use math in practice. And it's so important to continue to maintain two-way communication. Listen to your families. And my last point is I recall early in my career, seated in a parent-teacher conference in the gymnasium, and the line was always long for math educators. And I was trying to reconcile, well, what is that about? And it wasn't because students were performing low in my class or the other teachers' classes, but parents had so many questions about mathematics. And yet, the system of education and teacher preparation did not prepare me for that. So I'm thankful for opportunities and spaces like this where we can engage and do this more because it is so important so that we can listen to families and provide them with the most up-to-date relevant information about their children. And I think that is the last slide that I have, Maggie.
Thank you so much for that, Shakia. It's so much to think about. And what we wanted to do was maybe open it up to questions from everyone out there. We would be happy to do that. But also, we would love to hear from you all. in the chat box, or, if people even want to, somehow come off mute. I don't know exactly how to do that. But the question is, like, what's one thing you can do to engage families in their teens' math learning? And that's really, for our practitioners who are out there on the line. We'd love to hear other strategies that you're using, or stories or cases. It's one of the things that we love to do, is just to write these up and share all these positive examples. So we'd love to hear from you, but at the same time, Jeanette, or, if there are questions that are coming in, we would also love to answer those. Thank you for putting that link, Shakia, into the chat box. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I always loved inviting, and I've used the word love a lot on this call, and it's all authentic. But I loved having parents come into the classroom because it helped bridge that barrier between school and home. And then some of the students were able to see how mathematics played out within their caregiver's career, what they were doing at home as a homemaker. So it didn't have to be overly complex, but it was just a uh, uh, a very good opportunity to engage in those conversations beyond the classroom.
Yeah, no, that's great. And there's a great comment from Shamika here in the chat box around student-led conferences, get families engaged in their students' learning. That's a really exciting model, and we know that there's increasingly a lot of data around the effectiveness of having students share their portfolios and share, in very elaborate and rigorous ways, ways that they've been successful in math, or, sometimes students are their biggest critics. Sometimes, explaining, oh, I got this wrong, but I knew in my head. And so really having opportunities to have those student-led conferences to get families engaged. I love that.
Right.
And Jeanette also put the importance of using everyday math. I think that's right. Shaki, I was even thinking of the question that you had asked very early on around, thinking about those patterns and the ways that we use mathematics in our own lives, and the different hierarchies and power dynamics that exist. And I was thinking about Counted Out, the math documentary. And, for us to, if somebody had put in the chat box around looking at political maps or looking at election results, being able to, use math in these everyday contexts, and having math classes really making that relevant and useful. I think that's so important.
Oh, yeah.
Shaki, I'm going to put this question to you. Lisa is asking, actually a really nice question. Do you have any suggestions for math websites or apps that are math centered for middle and high school students for math practice outside of the classroom to build and strengthen math skills, not just for students, but also for families? Besides
Absolutely.
besides Khan Academy or Khan Academy Kids, is the asterisk there.
Right. And I can definitely pull up and share some more resources. I thinking off the top of my head, Desmos comes to mind as an opportunity to look at graph calculators and activities in a different way. And then there also are opportunities to develop interactive activities and practice around middle and high school math concepts as well. Zern, yes, definitely, Holly. Thank you for that. Offers an abundance of resources. I'm also thinking about illustrative mathematics has resources for families. Again, I'm trying to reference apps and websites that are available for free. Uh, but I'll put some more in the chat. cool game, it's cool math games. Nice. Uh, yes. So I'll keep thinking about that and find my resource document to upload that. Or if there's an opportunity to share resources after this call, I will definitely do that as well.
That's great. Um, you know, and
Also,
oh,
there's
go ahead.
I just want to say one more thing because as I was working on the book, one of the things that came up was what about beyond websites and apps? So what are materials or opportunities, some like referencing everyday math opportunities. So just thinking about um, in literature, how can we make those connections? I talked about a lesson on Kipu, I'm sorry, which is this artifact that uses thread. And I talk about how it's the knots on each thread represent a value and how students and families can explore this idea of artifacts in nature and the representations within culture for mathematics. So thinking about connections to the digital coding and how that may have been used predating our technical devices. So thinking beyond the tech as well.
And one thing that I might add to this conversation as well is the notion of, you know, a little bit the flipped classroom. I think more and more we see teachers who are, you know, utilizing and leveraging the opportunity to record lessons either on Zoom or, you know, in some capacity so that, you know, students are able to take the lessons home, do the lessons, watch with parents, engage in that lesson, and then in the classroom do some more of that applied practice type of work. So in that sense, and, you know, I realized that you know that requires like a good amount of time to watch a 45-minute class, but to make those short clips that can really help families and students work together and learn together is another fun way. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's a
And
great question.
what's going on in this graph? The New York Times. I almost forgot to mention this. This is one of my favorites that I used within the classroom and look at beyond since I'm not currently teaching right now. It's a valuable resource that's also free, accessible online. And they put out a graph and it can be very engaging about food or music, whatever topic may be relevant to a teen, and then it poses questions to help that teen strategize what is the meaning of the data and how does the presentation of the data reflect. So it's like within that context. So what's going on with this graph is another website.
That's terrific. Well, it looks like we are out of questions. So what I might do is I'm going to advance our slides real quick as we wrap up. But oh, that was our discussion and question. I did want to sort of make mention all of the many resources, and we are growing resources, are available on our familymath.org website. And in addition, our partner, one of our main partners, the Erickson Institute, also has a website that has a number of resources. And although some of those resources are geared towards more early math, many of the ideas and many of the videos that they have are also applicable and could be extended to the later years as well. We also want to share and pass it over to our sponsors and our great partners in New Jersey to share some other exciting upcoming news and events that are going to be taking place. So Jeanette, I don't know if you would like to share some of these exciting events.
So we're excited to share with our audience today some coming events. The first I want to highlight is our SPAN Parent Leadership Advocacy Conference, which is going to be in person. held on Saturday, September 27th. It's from 9 about 4 p.m. and we have a really great family track and a learning day. You'll have opportunities to hear from really great speakers. We have the former director of Office of Special Education Programs, Valerie C. Williams, keynote. So we're really excited. We're always geared up when we have an opportunity to connect with our parents, our communities, and our partners in person at a conference. So we hope that you can join us. And then we do have on Tuesday, we're going to be offering a learning workshop, Tuesday, September 16th. And that is going to be offered by our partner, NJ4S. And the title is Empowered Kids Building Own Responsibility. Gives an opportunity to understand self-management, a life skill that helps children handle challenges and make good choices. That's going to be really a great workshop to attend. Another opportunity delivered by our same partner, Erica Brenton, will be held Wednesday, September 17th. And that is building our learning village, designing respectful, collaborative learning spaces. And this is an opportunity where children learn best when they feel seen and valued. And so I will preface that both of these workshops are in the evening from 6 to 7 p.m. The registration link is going to be put in the chat, and we hope that you'll be able to join us. So we do have our next webinar hosted by the Hub will be held October 14th, which is usually the second Tuesday of the month. And that's ahead of the game. Really, what we're really excited about is our chronic absenteeism webinar, which will be held next Tuesday, September 9th. And that should be our events as well, but we do have them monthly. We have another webinar October 14th. We're going to highlight effective strategies for parent-teacher conferences. And then we have our Parents as Champions for Healthy Schools, which is a virtual, it will be offered virtually, but it is a learning series. It'll be delivered either in the morning or in the evening. You would select. There are 3 sessions consecutive each week, and then you will receive a certificate. And it really gives you opportunity as a parent to learn how to work with your schools, partner with them, work together in supporting and improving learning and development, and really how to cast a message of having healthy students and on the 10 components of our WISP model, which is delivered and presented by Casey Dudley, who does a really fantastic job in elevating that workshop series. We do have a Lunch and Learn series that we just launched last month. This is going to be our second installment. So join us Tuesday, September 16th from 12 p.m. Back to school, moving forward. Our presenter will be Kim Rivers from the Family Engagement Hub. And this is going to be a great opportunity for parents and educators and students as well to prepare as we go back to school. So please be sure to register for that. And then our next upcoming webinar, Demystifying New Math, will be held by our wonderful partners here at NAFSCE on September 11th at 2 p.m. So if you loved what you learned here today, I'm sure many of you have, please be sure to register and join us for the next offering. And then NAFSCE has a wonderful conference that's going to be held in New Orleans. And I'm proud to say that the Hub team will be there present. Some of us will be there in person, and some of us will be learning virtually as well. So we encourage you to please register. It is a robust conference filled with great learning. So please be sure to scan the QR code and please join us. And this concludes the portion of our webinar. I will say once again, if someone from our team can please put in the chats, our upcoming webinar on September 9th, chronic absenteeism. Please be sure to register for that. It's really going to be a very powerful webinar and presentation, so I hope. But this does conclude the portion of our webinar today with our amazing partners. Thank you so much, Maggie. Thank you, Shakia, for being here with us, and Holly, who's behind the scenes. At this time, please scan the QR code and fill out our survey. As you know, your feedback is invaluable, and we want to be able to continue to deliver insightful webinars as the one you just attended today. If you require to receive a certificate of participation, please choose No, which is your option on the survey, and we'll be sure to get that to you. Once again, thank you for joining us. Until the next time, take care.